Happy Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order and John Saber here with you for the next hour. Damian Mitchell will be back with us on Monday. He's taking some time off for the holidays, so I took off the beginning part of the week. Damian's off the end of the week, and somehow, John Saber, you have ended up on the show more this week than either of us will be. So thank
Yeah,
you. We appreciate you for being
I
here.
feel like Michael Madsen's character in Reservoir Dogs. I'm stuck in the middle with you two. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here. And we're going to have a lot of fun today on the show as we continue one day away now from the beginning of the college football playoff. And just about, 37 hours from now, you will be watching Alabama and Oklahoma in a rematch, winner take all game there in Norman, Oklahoma. Will Alabama advance to take on Indiana in the Rose Bowl, or will Alabama be one and done? And certainly, if that's the case, I know a lot of people that will be quite disappointed in the end result of the season, but you're certainly glad that you're playing in this game in the first place because this time last year you were getting ready for a ReliaQuest Bowl game against Michigan that ended up being absolutely horrible. So much better to be on this side of things if you're an Alabama fan this season. And that's where we'll start off on the show today is we'll spend some time talking about this Alabama-Oklahoma game. Even though I know it feels, we were kind of joking about it on 3-Man Front yesterday. It's like, man, it feels like we've been talking about this game for a month. And it's probably because a month ago we were talking about this
It kind
game.
of, yeah, feels familiar.
Yeah, it was not that long ago that these two teams played in Tuscaloosa. But there have been some things that have changed in that amount of time. And, it's always hard to, with any team, right? It's kind of hard to remove what you saw from them the last time they were on the field. It kind of feels, it's not the same as the beginning of the season for Alabama, but it has a little bit more of that feel of how are you going to respond after, just be honest, like playing like crap. It was kind of like the Florida State game. It was so shocking to watch not only the fact that Alabama lost that game, but it was the way that they lost that game and the way that they looked playing in that game where they got out physical. They didn't look like they wanted it as much as the other team. And we saw then how they responded on the way to 8 straight victories. And that's really what sealed the deal for them in getting to the college football playoff is what they did in response to that. Now, can you do that again after what happened against Georgia in the SEC championship game 2 weeks ago? Where let's just be honest, that was probably the worst the teams looked all year. I mean, it was technically a worse performance even the Florida State game. You managed 7 points, and that was it. But a lot of that came down to injuries and guys being banged up, and we know that was a big hindrance to both teams that day, but certainly more so it seemed that to Alabama than to Georgia. And so that brings us to now, because that was the big question for Alabama heading into this game against Oklahoma was how healthy are they going to be, right? Because if they're healthy, you have a pretty good feeling that Alabama can go be competitive and have a decent shot at winning this game on Friday. If they're not healthy, who knows what you're going to get to see on Friday. But the good news is it seems like Alabama is certainly the healthiest that they've been, maybe going back to that first meeting against Oklahoma. And a big part of that is Josh Cuevas, the tight end, who the last time you saw him play for Alabama was that Oklahoma game. And he's been out since then. And we've seen that. I know you had turnovers in that game, but that was honestly, you could make an argument, the best offensive performance that the team had, again, taking out the turnovers because of how good of a defense Oklahoma is and the kind of numbers that Alabama was able to put up in early November against the Sooners in Tuscaloosa. I know you didn't win the game, but you put up over 400 total yards on one of the best offenses in the country. If that's the kind of Alabama that you're going to get on Friday, then you're probably in pretty good shape. And Josh Cuevas, it was announced yesterday by Kalen DeBoer when he was talking to the media yesterday afternoon that he will be available on Friday. Doesn't mean he's going to be 100%, but it does mean that you should certainly expect him to suit up. They put out the new injury reports last night. He's now upgraded to probable, as is Danny Lewis. So Kalen DeBoer said they're both going to be available on Friday, just maybe not, in an every down kind of a role. But that is huge news, I think, for Alabama. You just look at everything that Cuevas means to them. Obviously, as a pass catcher, kind of being that security blanket for Ty Simpson, but also what he does in the run game as a blocker. He is so valuable to that offense and in so many different ways. And getting him back, I would have to imagine, is a huge boost to the confidence of that group going in to Norman on Friday. So that's really good news if you're an Alabama fan. I think it's got to make you feel a little bit better on the matchup on Friday. We'll just have to see now exactly, are we talking about, is he 70%, 80%? And how many snaps is he going to be able to play, that kind of thing. But certainly much better news. And Alabama, as I said, I think probably the healthiest that they've been maybe since that first Oklahoma game outside of, the LT Overton situation, unfortunately.
And having at least somewhat of a healthy Cuevas will definitely, or at least should be able to help that Alabama offense, because one of the things that Oklahoma defense did was get after the quarterback, which, if assuming they're going to continue that same style of attack, that would allow for the checkdowns, the screen game, the ability to, okay, if you're going to rush everyone like that, that leaves right around the line of scrimmage or quick outs. We'll leave all of those open, and that's something that Cuevas always thrived on. If I remember, he was the leading receiver in that Oklahoma game. I want to say he was 80, so it wasn't quite 100.
Yeah, he had 6 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, so getting him back definitely boosts this Alabama offense. So hopefully he's at least well enough to play, because, again, with him no longer being on the injury, it's like, okay, he's at least well enough to play, but hopefully he's well enough to play and be productive.
Yes, exactly. So, again, he's the kind of guy that just having him out there obviously is going to force the defense to have to account for him. And so even if he's not 100%, you are going to get, you are going to get some benefit out of it. But, yeah, like Saber was mentioning, right, he really, he had his best game of the year. His best game as a member of the Alabama Crimson Tide against Oklahoma a little over a month ago. So we'll see if he can replicate that, and Alabama can have a similar level of success on the offensive side of the ball. Because if they do, again, if you're able to do what you did a month ago and you turn the ball over even just twice as opposed to 3 times, you're going to win that football game. And so if you're able to play clean and protect the football and kind of get back to the rhythm that you had earlier in the season, you're going to be in really, really good shape. But that's a lot of what ifs and a lot of things that Alabama has to clean up execution-wise on Friday, and because they're going into a tough environment.
Yeah, and even with that, as poorly, well, I won't say they played poorly, but despite having those multiple turnovers, they lost by less than a field goal, and they missed at least one.
Yep.
It might have been 2. I know they missed at least one. So despite as poorly as the outcome was, as having their turnovers, they offensively, they played rather well, at least according to the stats. So I think probably most Bama fans will think like, hey, if we were able to replicate what happened back in November against that team, we'll take it. Even if we end up with the turnover, I think I don't know if they're willing to fully trust Talty now, but it's like, all right, how often has he missed? Even if you do all of that, we'll take it down to a field goal game, because we have confidence that at least the offense will be able to do just enough to put us past the Sooners.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So we'll dive a little bit more into that matchup here a little bit later in the show, and would love to get some of your final thoughts as we'll do our final predictions and scores and everything tomorrow, as the game will be tomorrow night. But now, yeah, any of your thoughts? How do you feel about Cuevas coming back? Does that make you feel a lot more confident if you're an Alabama fan? Does it really not move the needle as much for you? We'd love to hear from you. 205-834-9450 on the courtesy GMC text line as we move along here. But speaking of Alabama, quickly, they were in action last night on the hardwood as they welcomed in South Florida and Brian Hodgson, who, if you may remember, a former Nate Oates assistant, formerly at Arkansas State, now the head coach there at South Florida. So he brought the Bulls down to Tuscaloosa, and got to give him credit. It was not a pretty game for Alabama, but it is a game that you walked out with a win against a former coach that knows you very well, knows the kind of style that Nate Oates likes to run, and knows how to throw wrenches in that. So Alabama, they get the win 104-93. Definitely concerning when you're giving up 93 on the other end to a team like South Florida. They scored, so it was 46-39 at halftime. In the second half, Alabama outscored South Florida 58-54. They gave up 54 points in the second half defensively, which is just not where you want to be if you're Alabama. And honestly, when you look at it, the really the difference in the game is you made three more free three pointers than South Florida did and two extra free throws, and that's literally the only difference. I mean, Alabama turns it over 14 times. That's not good, but you force 15 turnovers, so that kind of makes up for it a little bit. You do get out rebounded again, which has been a problem for Alabama. I mean, you got out rebounded 46-45. It was 25-20 on the offensive glass. So again, not a good sign. But I think more so we walk away from this and you look and you go, man, these two teams were very even last night, but they shouldn't be because Alabama should have blown them out of the gym. And you just go and look. I mean, there were multiple times that Alabama, they'd get that out to a 12-point lead, a 15-point lead. I think 18 was the most it got to. But you would start to see him stretch it a little bit, get in a rhythm, start hitting some threes, and then South Florida would come right back. So you got to give credit to Brian Hodgson and what he was able what he's been able to do since leaving Alabama, and they gave in a heck of an effort last night. But then, I mean, once it got to the end, it became a ref show. I mean, you had so many free throws that were shot at the end of that game last night and just kind of made it drag on. I mean, you had combined last night 69 free throws.
Whew.
69 free throws. They called 52 fouls in that game last night. It was getting a little ridiculous there at the end, in my personal opinion. But a win is a win. It wasn't pretty. You got a lot to work on if you're Alabama. And again, the physicality part of it and the effort part of it, that's something that's got to be better. It was there at times last night, but it's just still not where it needs to be all the time. But you got to give credit. LeBaron Philon, he goes for 29 points last night, 10 of 15 shooting from the floor, added 7 assists to go along with that. He's having an All-American type season for Alabama right now. Aiden Holloway, 24 points. He makes 4 3-pointers. Perfect from the free throw line there as well. Houston Millette, he goes for 14, makes 3 3-pointers. So kind of spreading the love there with the shooters for Alabama last night. But a win is a win. You're now 8-3, 4-1 inside of Coleman Coliseum this season. And you've got 2 more tune-up games before SEC play starts. You're going to be taking on Kennesaw State this weekend. Then on the 29th, you've got Yale. And before you know it, it'll be the beginning of January, and it'll be Alabama and Kentucky. That will be the first SEC game for Alabama on January the 3rd. So you got Auburn. They'll be in action this weekend as well. So that's your quick little look at what's going on in SEC hoops. As Alabama, they get the 104-93 victory last night over South Florida. But we get back to the college football conversation. You had some bowl games going on last night. Also some news going on in the gambling world, the transfer portal, and much, much more. So we'll tell you everything that's going on outside of the Alabama-Oklahoma game, but everything else that's going on in the college football world, things you need to know. That's next here on JOX. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Thursday morning. Conrad Van Order, John Saber here with you as we continue the college football conversation. Some big news for Auburn yesterday as it was unveiled via social media that they have retained, in my opinion, I know some of you may have different thoughts on this, but in my opinion, I would say probably the most important player to retain on that roster for Auburn heading into 2026, and that is Xavier Atkins, the All-American linebacker there, who's just, I mean, turned into one of the best defensive players in the SEC in the entire country this year. And his story is so cool. And a transfer from LSU, somebody that really hadn't, put anything on film there at LSU, was kind of getting buried on the depth chart and seemed like maybe his college football career just really wasn't headed anywhere. DJ Durkin finds him, brings him to Auburn, and now he's turned him into one of the best players, at least on the defensive side of the ball, in the entire country. And he made it official. He posted a nice fancy graphic from Auburn football on social media yesterday. And so he will be coming back for another year on the Plains, and that is great news if you are Alex Golish and DJ Durkin. Because you've had, some guys that leave. We talked about Jay Crawford the other day, him hitting the transfer portal and that being, a little bit of a tough loss there for Auburn. But you went out and you retained the guy that you absolutely had to retain. Now we'll see, who the next kind of pieces are there for Auburn to get retained. I know a lot of people probably thinking, well, is Cam Coleman going to be the next? We'll have to wait and see. But certainly big news there with Xavier Atkins coming back for another year. That's a big one if you're Auburn. So good on them and that staff for being able to get that taken care of. We did have a couple of bowl games last night. And speaking of South Florida, we were just talking about them because they were playing Alabama in basketball last night. They were also playing a football game last night. And, it wasn't a great night if you're a Bulls fan.
Not really, no.
I think that's safe to say. So we knew that obviously things were going to be tough probably for South Florida, right? Alex Golish left, took a bunch of the coaching staff with him. Byron Brown, he stuck around for the game. Like, he didn't play. He was coaching in the game. I guess it's whatever, just helping out on the sidelines. So, again, all that to be said, you lost your head coach. You lost most of your staff. You lost a bunch of your players. You lost your quarterback. It was going to be tough, but you're going up against an Old Dominion team. Like, okay, maybe South Florida's still going to find a way. They did not. They did not find a way. So
they led at half.
They did lead at half. They were up 10-7 at halftime. But Old Dominion, they would outscore USF 17-0 in the second half, unfortunately.
Yeah, that kind of did it.
That's where they get you. So Old Dominion, they win 24-10. So for South Florida, you had Gaston Moore starting there, the former Tennessee quarterback, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right, yeah.
Because I feel like I remember him a couple years ago because Damien was a big fan of Gaston Moore, of course, because he's a Tennessee guy.
Yep.
But that would make sense, Alex Golish having the connection from his times as offensive coordinator there. But nonetheless, Gaston Moore, he gets the start last night for USF. He throws for 236, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. You have Quinn Hennicle, the quarterback there for Old Dominion. He went 11-25 passing for 127 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. But he did have 24 carries for 107 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. So that'll certainly make up for the lack of yardage there through the air. But Old Dominion, they run for 255 yards on South Florida. On the flip side, South Florida, they only rushed for 52 total yards last night. And no touchdowns for them, 3 touchdowns on the ground for Old Dominion. So a rough night there for the South Florida Bulls, and a season that started off very, very hot with wins over Boise State and Florida, and they were in the top 25, and then they were going up against Miami, and we were like, man, can't wait to see what this South, like, they might really be able to give Miami a fight. And I think at that point we kind of started to realize, okay, maybe we had gotten a little overboard on this USF
Boise
thing.
and South and Florida weren't as good as we thought.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
And again, still a very good year for South Florida. Alex Golish did an incredible job with them. But again, you just look at how the season started, and after a couple of weeks, people were legitimately making the argument that South Florida should be the number 1 team in the country after 2 weeks because they had played 2 ranked teams and beaten them.
That was a bit much, but it felt like, at least after those first 2 weeks, that okay, they've done enough to warrant inclusion into the playoff.
Yeah.
Even if all they had to do was be competitive against Miami. And honestly, some people, even if they lost, beating Florida and Boise State. It's like, okay, like they've done enough to in the non-conference that we assume that they'll run the table and do well in their actual conference, that it'll be enough to, if not automatically put them in because they'll win the American, they'll at least get an at-large like Boise did, and sadly that didn't happen. But still a very good, solid season for the Bulls, ending up, 9-4, I want to say?
Yep, 9-4 on the season. So, because, yeah, you lost to Miami early on. You lost to Memphis by a field goal, and you lost to Navy by a field goal. So, I mean, outside of Miami, again, like all of these are incredibly close losses, and this very easily could have been a South Florida team that maybe we were talking about in the college football playoff, but that is not the way that it goes. So Old Dominion, they get their 10th win of the season. They finish 10-3, and South Florida, they get to move on with Brian Hartline and try to get back on their feet for next year and carry on with the success of that program. And now Auburn, you're happy because you ended up with Alex Golish, and you feel good about the future of that program as well. So South Florida, they get taken out by Old Dominion. Yesterday, you also had, that was in the Cure Bowl, you also had the 68 Ventures Bowl going on last night as the Delaware Blue Hens, the home of the mighty Joe Flacco, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
They take down Louisiana, the former home of Billy Napier as the head coach. But they get the 20-13 victory last night. So Delaware, they're going to finish up 7-6. Louisiana is going to finish up on the year 6-7. But how about, Ben DiNucci, if you remember him, the quarterback from the New York Giants, like the backup from a couple of years ago? How about Nick Minicucci? That's the quarterback for Delaware.
Ooh, okay.
He goes for 176 yards and a touchdown last night. You have, these are great quarterback names. You have Nick Minicucci for Delaware, and then you have Lunch Winfield for Louisiana. His first name is Lunch. That's incredible. He goes for 236, a touchdown and interception there. He added 40 yards on the ground, talking about Lunch there. And then on the Delaware side, Joe Silver, he runs for 116 yards and a touchdown. These names are incredible. Just absolutely incredible. So shout out to Delaware as they get the 20-13 victory last night over Louisiana to put a feather in the cap of their 2025 college football season. Tonight, you have one bowl game. It's only one. It is the Xbox Bowl, which I'm going to be honest with you, I did not know that Xbox had a bowl game.
It literally just happened.
That would be why I didn't know that it existed. So Xbox, they have a bowl game, apparently, and it is tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPN2, as you will get to watch Missouri State and Arkansas State do battle there in Frisco, Texas. And as it stands right now, Missouri State is a 1.5-point favorite based on what I'm looking at, if you want to get a little action in on that tonight. So that's your bowl slate coming up there. Of course, we do also have some action going on over in the NFL, as you have. This could very well be one of the best games of the entire season. These are, for my money, probably two of the three best teams in the NFL right now at this very moment. You're getting the Rams at the Seahawks tonight in Seattle. 7:15 kickoff on Amazon Prime. Seattle's getting 1.5 points right now in Vegas. But yeah, if you haven't watched these teams, they're both 11-3. They're neck and neck in the NFC West there. This is a massive game for potentially who gets the one seed in the bye in the postseason there for the NFC side of things in the NFL. But this should be one of the very best games of the season. Can't wait for this one tonight. The Rams and Seahawks, two of the best offenses in the league, two of the better defenses in the league as well. And this is the kind of game, if the Rams go out there and win and Matthew Stafford has a big night, he very well may lock up the MVP award, as he's been just spectacular this year. And then similarly, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's got 3 games left. If he can absolutely turn it up, he's got a chance to potentially, he'd have to have 3 really big games, hit 2,000 receiving yards this year. So a lot on the line. Should be a lot of fun tonight. Rams Seahawks there, 7:15, alongside your Xbox Bowl action you've got going on in the college football world.
At least in Thursday night on Prime, this was one of those that, okay, they'll put up with the Jets and your Cardinals and your kind of crappy games that maybe at the beginning of the season was like, oh, okay, yeah, this should be pretty good. And, oh, okay, you're willing to put up with a lot of those crappy Thursday games to get something like this.
Absolutely.
If you're Amazon.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at this weekend ahead, I mean, the Patriots and Ravens, that's an interesting matchup. Packers and Bears, that'll be a good one as well. But I think this is definitely the premier NFL game of the entire week. And as I said, I think it could very easily end up being one of the 2 or 3 best games that we get all regular season long. So definitely don't want to miss that one. And of course, we'll break it all down for you tomorrow morning on the show. But enough looking ahead to what's coming up tonight. Let's look ahead to what's going on tomorrow because that is going to be the first round of the college football playoff kicking off from Norman, Oklahoma, as Alabama and Oklahoma will do battle. Let's talk a little bit about the matchup, what we need to see from Alabama, what is maybe going to be a little different this time opposed to a little over a month ago when these two teams faced off in Tuscaloosa. And how about this? The top players in the college football playoff, how many of them on this list are at Alabama? How many are at Oklahoma? Does that give you a little look into this matchup on Friday? We'll dive into all that and more here on the Thursday morning edition of Morning Jocks. You're listening to Morning Jocks here on your Thursday morning as we're getting you ready for Alabama and Oklahoma and the other matchups of the first round of the college football playoff. So, of course, tomorrow we will deliver you our picks for, we might sprinkle some bowl games in there, but definitely for the 4 college football playoff games that we've got coming up this weekend. So, you've got Alabama, Oklahoma tomorrow night from Norman. Then you got 3 games on Saturday. So, it should be a fantastic weekend all around of college football action. And of course, you've got the NFL sprinkled in there on Saturday and Sunday as well. And of course, tonight as well. So a lot for us to get into with this matchup. But this was an interesting kind of thing that I saw yesterday that got put out about the college football playoff. And ESPN took it upon themselves and some of their staff there to go and rank the 50 best players in the college football playoff right now. So you do some simple math. All right, there's 12 teams in the playoff, 50 players. So, you could say, okay, well, if it's even, maybe you have like an average of about 4 per team.
Right.
But I think you would imagine, right, like Ohio State's probably got like 7 or 8.
A good number.
Let's
right,
be
yeah,
honest.
okay.
Like, they're going to have more than 4. Tulane and James Madison, they're probably going to have less than 4 if they have anybody. So let's go through and look at this from an Alabama-Oklahoma perspective. We can get into the top 5 or top 10, whatever, here in a moment. But just looking at this list, so again, this is the top 50 players amongst the 12 college football playoff teams for this year. And so Alabama and Oklahoma, interestingly enough, actually both have the same number of players on this list. You want to guess how many that is, Saber?
3.
That is correct. They both have 3 players on this list. And so let's start with Alabama. We'll tell you where they are right now and who they are. So at number 42 overall, the 42nd best player left in the college football playoff, according to ESPN, would be Deontay Lawson for Alabama.
Okay.
So he, and again, some of these are going based off of, before the season, they went through and ranked all the top, the top 50 or 100 players in college football. And so they kind of add this in there. So they had him as the 27th best player entering the year.
Right.
They now have him as the 42nd best player in the playoff. But Deontay Lawson, of course, we know how big of a factor he is, the captain of that defense for Alabama. Earlier in the year, it definitely seemed like it, taking a little while to get back after the ACL injury that he had last season. But really the second half of the year, he's really come along nicely. Feels like, you're kind of looking at the old Deontay Lawson out there at times. But you go back, he big part of getting the fumble there against South Carolina late in that game against Lenore Sellers.
Yes.
He recovered the fumble from Cam Coleman in the Iron Bowl at the end of the game. So, when Alabama's needed some clutch defensive plays, he's been there in the mix for them in some of the biggest moments this year. So Deontay Lawson comes in at number 42. He is the first Alabama player on the list. At number 41,
okay,
we have another Alabama
slightly
player.
ahead. All right.
It is Ty Simpson.
Okay.
Certainly lower than you would have probably thought a month ago that he would be.
Feels that way about both of them, but yeah.
Yes, but here we are. So they say that Ty Simpson is the 41st best player in the college football playoff. And, to be fair, when you look at, just going down the list, who all's ahead of him right now, and I understand we can go back and look at moments from the year and have some debates about this. But ahead of him, Trinidad Chambliss, I don't have a problem with that.
No, yeah.
Trinidad's a good player. Gunnar Stockton, I think Gunnar's playing better football right now.
Don't disagree.
I don't have a problem with those 2 guys being ahead of Ty Simpson in the quarterback pecking order. Dante Moore, can't really argue against that. He's been really solid all year for Oregon. And then, of course, you're going to have Julian Sain and Fernando Mendoza there in the top 5. So, okay, they're telling you he's the 6th best quarterback in the college football playoff. Right now, that's probably about fair.
That feels about right, especially given how he's played down the stretch.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I'd disagree.
I was about to say, you can make the argument that at times this year he's had higher highs.
Absolutely,
but
yes.
Where is he right now? I can't really argue against this. So Ty Simpson, the 41st best player, according to ESPN, in the playoff. And again, just doing some simple math there, that would put him as the 6th best quarterback. But okay, again, if you're going into this if you're just saying this, if you're Alabama, you're going in, you feel good about the defense. If Ty starts to look more like the Ty from old, he got some rest, looks a little fresh. Like you feel, okay, we got a top 6 quarterback and one of the better defenses in here. We feel like, okay, like let's ride with that. You probably feel pretty good about that. But if you see the Ty Simpson we saw for the last month, it's going to be tough sledding. You're going to have to make some of those big throws that he hasn't been able to make at times. So those are your first two for Alabama. Number 42, Deontay Lawson. 41, Ty Simpson. There's one player left, Saber. Of all of the players left, who do you think would be the highest rated player on Alabama's team, according to ESPN, out of all of these guys?
John Talty.
It is not John Talty.
Oh, okay.
It is another white boy, though, because it's Bray Hubbard.
Oh, yeah. That honestly, he's I don't want to say he saved Alabama's defense, but I felt like he's been the one that's made a lot of the spectacular plays throughout most of the season.
Yeah, I certainly think he's been the best player on Alabama's defense. I think you could make now certainly at times this year. I think Ty. You could say that Ty's been the best player. You could say that Jeremy Bernard maybe at times has been the best player. But I think when you just look at his season as a whole, I know he had a bad game against Florida State, but outside of that, yeah, he's probably been the best player on Alabama's team this year. He's been absolutely sensational. But he's number 20 on this list. He's the highest rated Alabama player on the list, according to ESPN. So you've got two defenders and your quarterback all there between number 42 and number 20 on the overall player rankings list. But yeah, I think Bray Hubbard absolutely deserves that nod. And you have to imagine that if Alabama is going to win on Friday and continue their playoff run, that Bray Hubbard's certainly going to play a big role in that. Now let's look at Oklahoma real quick, because we discussed it. They have the same number. So Oklahoma, they also have three of the top 50 players in the college football playoff. At number 49, Isaiah Satania, their wide receiver. For this year, if you weren't keeping up, 65 catches, 950 yards, 7 touchdowns. He is also infamously the player that scored on the illegal touchdown against Auburn. That is Isaiah Satania, if you didn't know. And now you're like, oh, okay, now I know who that is.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
Oh, that guy.
I knew that name.
Yes. So, again, he's very explosive. He can add a lot of elements. They use him kind of all over the offense. Also use him on special teams at times. So, yeah, he's certainly, when you look at the offense for Oklahoma, he's the guy that you circle and you go, if we eliminate him, what else you got? Because that's really all you got.
Yeah, and that does seem low. The second leading receiver in the SEC, having him at 49 feels a little low. But I guess I get it, because in an Oklahoma offense that has been stagnant throughout most of the season, yes, he's been the bright spot, but also he's been the only really kind of spot.
Yes, that is correct. But you said you think Isaiah Satania may be a little low on this list, maybe should have been bumped up a couple of spots. I think this guy needs to be bumped up a couple of spots, because next up for Oklahoma at number 43, you have R. Mason Thomas.
Yeah.
I think R. Mason Thomas, you could probably argue he's in the top 20. Again, just my opinion. Now, maybe they're knocking him because he did only play in 9 games this year. He missed the last 3 games of the season, including the first game against Alabama this year with injury. But, I mean, he's absolutely fantastic. He had 6.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles for loss in only 9 games. First team all SEC, just an absolute force up there, up front for this Oklahoma defense. And I mean, I think Oklahoma probably has one of the 5 or 6 best defenses in the entire country. This is the best player on that defense, in my opinion. So I think he's a little underrated here, but again, maybe they're just going off. Haven't seen him in a while. He's missed a number of games this year. Maybe that's why he's at number 43, but I certainly think when he's healthy, he is much better than just the 43rd best player in the college football playoff.
He's recorded a sack in 5 of the last 6 games he played.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That is pretty good. And then finally here, the final member of this list from the Alabama-Oklahoma matchup, and the highest rated player for Oklahoma, you have at number 30 overall, defensive end Taylor Wine. 12 tackles for loss, 6 sacks this year for Oklahoma. And he's kind of been the guy that's filled that role or that void left by R. Mason Thomas with his injury. So he has a tackle for loss in 10 of 12 games this season. Just absolutely incredible. Had 2.5 sacks in the Alabama and Missouri games. Just a really, really nice player that's come along nicely for Oklahoma and been at his best late in the season when they needed him because of some injury problems that they've had. So there you have it for Oklahoma. So they've got 2 of their guys up front on the defensive line. They're in the top 50. Isaiah Satania, their receiver, in the mix as well. And then if you're Alabama, you got Deontay Lawson, Bray Hubbard and Ty Simpson. So, at least according to this list, you're fairly equal in terms of talent going into the game. But we'll see how that ultimately plays out for you on Friday. And again, there's an opportunity, right? If Ty Simpson looks healthy for the first time in, I mean, again, just from an optics standpoint, for the first time in over a month, he's probably better than the 41st best player in the college
Yeah, most
football
likely.
playoff.
Yeah.
He very well, you could make an argument that at times this year he was the best quarterback in college football, but you haven't been playing like it lately. Can you get back on track on Friday? The defense is going to be fired up. You're healthy. You got Cuevas back. You got Jam back. Your offensive line's healthy. The defense is fired up and playing their best football of the year. If Ty Simpson can get back on track, Alabama's going to be in really, really good shape. But we'll give you our final thoughts on that game tomorrow, including score predictions for that game and the rest of the first round of the college football playoff. But a lot of you chiming in with your thoughts on the matchups coming up this weekend. Some of you chiming in, not agreeing with the list that we just went through of the top players in the college football playoff. But we'd love to hear from you. 205-834-9450 on the Courtesy GMC text line, 1-800-239 WJOX on the phone lines there as we roll along and the conversation continues here on JOX. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. A few more moments here on your rainy Thursday morning. Make sure you stay safe out there while you're out on the road going to work, school, what have you today. But we appreciate you tuning us in each and every morning here on Jocks. And we will hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning, coming up here at 7 o'clock, the top of the hour, and an exciting show ahead there. And a very special guest that will be joining the show this morning that you're not going to want to miss. I did also want to let you know that on Three Man Front, me and Landrum have a fun discussion planned for a little bit later today, but you can already get in on it if you want to. You can go vote in our Three Man Front Twitter poll question of the day, and we're going to get into this in our program coming up at 10 o'clock a little bit later on. But looking back now, 11 years of the college football playoff era, and who is the best team so far in the college football playoff era? And it's really going to come down to a lot of this is two teams, and that's what we're going to center the discussion around mainly. But it's 2019 LSU. We remember that team: Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and many, many others. They were just absolutely incredible there under Ed Orgeron. And then the next year you had 2020 Alabama. That was the COVID year, but that was the Alabama team that played an all SEC schedule, went undefeated, beat Florida in the SEC championship, and then stomped on Ohio State for a national title. The last one that Nick Saban would win at Alabama, that was the Devontae Smith Heisman year. And just in case you had forgotten, Alabama that year had 3 of the top 5 vote getters in the Heisman race. You had Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, and Najee Harris on that team. They were pretty good. And obviously, LSU the year before had, 3 of probably the 10 best NFL players currently on that offense. So that's going to be a great discussion, though. You can go join in on that there on the Twitter.
Will it actually be a discussion? Is someone going to take the other side on this? Because are y'all just going to keep it local? Well, I know what you're going to do, but
I to be completely honest with you, I don't feel, me personally, I don't feel like that's a definitive discussion in the sense of, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think 2020 Alabama is definitively that much better than 2019 LSU. I think you could make a very strong argument that that LSU team is the best team of all time.
Okay.
If those two teams played and you told me LSU won, I wouldn't. I'd be,
right.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't disagree. Right. I mean, they kind of mostly did beat that team, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess Mac Jones is just better than Tua. I guess.
I mean, Mac has seen the field more this year, so slightly.
Well, looks like he's going to see the field more heading into the future as well.
I guess technically Tua's seen the field more because he's been knocked on his butt more, so maybe.
Looking at the sky a lot in his time there, unfortunately. But anyways, yeah, a lot of fun, though, that we'll have in that discussion coming up later on today here on JOX. But let's get to your thoughts here on the Courtesy GMC text line, 205-834-9450. Let's see. This text comes in. It says, yeah, LSU 100%. Okay, they're talking about the debate there between Alabama in 2020 and LSU in 2019. This text comes in. It says, what's the latest on LT Overton? He is not going to be playing on Friday.
He was listed as out on yesterday's availability report. Now, I don't know once they're officially out if they can change that, but there will be at least another report tonight. So in theory, there might still be hope, but I think once they're listed as out, I think that's it.
I will just say, I said this yesterday, and again, I'm not going to get into it, but based on what I understand, I do not think LT Overton is going to play for Alabama.
Nor do
again. I think that was it for him. And it's not he did something wrong. It's really sad. It's just he's been battling through something.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, it's, maybe, taking a little bit more time for him to get over it than was initially expected. So, yeah, LT Overton's out for Friday. And even if Alabama, even if they make a run and, we're talking about them in a semifinal or even a national championship, I don't think you're going to see him again. So, but we hope the best for LT Overton and that he can continue at the next level next year and appreciate everything that he did in his time at the Capstone. Antoine chimes in, says that list is bogus, talking about the top 50 players in the college football playoff. He says there's no Tim Keenan, no Jeremy Bernard. Hell, we have the best secondary in the playoffs. Zabian Brown should be on that list too. Okay, so taking some exception to the fact that only 3 Bama players made the – here's my thing. Do I think that Tim Keenan on his best day is one of the 50 best players in the playoff? Yes.
Absolutely.
but he's also been hurt a lot this year.
Correct.
We haven't gotten to see that from him. Again, a lot of these players, we're thinking of them as, well, at their best, they're one of the 50 best players. Absolutely. But a lot of these guys, for whatever reason, injuries. I mean, you look at a guy like Ryan Williams. Is Ryan Williams one of the 10 most talented players in the playoff? Probably. He's not one of the 50 best, this year, right? Like, it's, again, I guess it's just kind of all your perspective on things. I will say, Jeremy, I do think you could probably make an argument that
he probably should be, honestly.
He should be on
that
list.
I think so, yes. Come on, Twan. Don't get mad. Don't get mad, Twan.
I was about to say, guess what? Go handle your business on Friday. That list doesn't matter. Lewis chimes in. He says, we were talking about Bray Hubbard. He says, have you seen the latest news on Cooper DeJean? White boy DBs is where it's at. If you're into Cougars, I guess, yeah.
For Zach Wilson, now Cooper DeJean. Look, it's about time we've had the coach on the field renaissance.
That's right.
I mean, first, it seems like maybe it started a year or two ago with Chalamet on game day, but now that DeJean's showing out and Bray Hubbard,
you're right.
The boys are back in town.
That's absolutely right. This one says, funny to think that Sam Darnold was in the same situation he's in right now with the Vikings last year. Yeah, they're not in a great spot right now. Bama Abroad says, Conrad, what are you doing to get up for the Alabama game tomorrow? I'll be hopping on a 9-hour plane ride back to the United States to watch the Tide roll in. Bama gets revenge and wins by a touchdown. I will be here doing the show, having a great time with y'all. We'll be back tomorrow.
Not jinxing them.
That's right. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Mac and Cube, those guys are up next.